Thank you, Chairman McDermott, Ranking Member Linder, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Karen Lee, and I am the Commissioner of the Washington State Employment and Security Department. And I'm testifying today in my role both as the President of National Association of State Workforce Agencies, known as NASWA, and in my capacity as a State Administrator. So I'll be talking to both Washington and also my colleagues. Like all of you, public service is something I value. I learned its importance during my years at West Point and later serving the country as a military officer. Today, my challenges as a public administrator are different but no less rewarding, and it's an honor to once again serve my country and my state by helping workers and businesses weather this Great Recession. My comments today will focus on the solvency of state trust funds and options for Congress and the states. 35 unemployment insurance programs are currently borrowing to make benefit payments. While many factors have contributed, two primary reasons are the Great Recession that we're in and that many state trust funds were simply not prepared to weather such a severe downturn. The depth and duration of the Great Recession contributed greatly to insolvency. For instance, the national unemployment rate has almost doubled to 9.7% since the start of the recession in December of 2007. Employers have shed about 8.4 million jobs, and people are unemployed longer than any time since World War II. And in 2009, more than 4.5 million Americans have been unemployed 6 months or more, the highest since 1946. This downturn is a challenge for every state. However, many states' insurance funds were also not prepared, even for an average recession. Basic insurance principles would have states build adequate reserves during good economic times so that they can serve to stabilize a poor economy. Those taking loans, especially those who borrowed the earliest, did not have adequate reserves during or tax revenue sufficient to pay benefits without borrowing. State legislatures are now grappling with this issue. How will they repay these loans? How can they correct the fiscal imbalance that led to borrowing? It will require difficult choices, increasing taxes, cutting benefits, or a combination. I'm proud to say that Washington will not need to borrow. We had an adequate reserve at the start of this recession and a tax policy that requires benefit costs to be covered by tax revenue. Those are sound insurance principles supported by our governor and state legislators, business, and labor. Many of the insolvent states may need to make changes to avoid borrowing in the future. There are 3 different ways to approach it. One is to increase and index the amount of wages subject to tax, spreading the tax over a larger portion of wages. We've had this structure in Washington State, and it has proved effective. A second is to reduce benefits. I believe that this type of reduction, particularly in a recession and in the early stages of recovery, hurts workers, families, and communities. However, some states have already tightened eligibility and reduced the number of workers who are covered. A third and more productive alternative is to put people back to work quickly so that they don't need unemployment benefits. An investment of $500 million in reemployment services can reduce the average UI claim by 3 weeks, benefiting 1.25 million claimants and saving the UI program an estimated $625 million. In my own state of Washington, a recent study shows that claimants who use our reemployment services return to work faster and earn more than those who didn't. But with dozens of states facing tax increases to repay loans, NASWA asks this committee to extend the interest-free waiver on their loans for 2 additional years. And at the same time, please don't forget states like Washington and Louisiana that had adequate reserves going into this recession and are still solvent today. Their foresight should be recognized and treated equitably. We should all work together to ensure state unemployment trust funds are adequately prepared to address both good and bad times in the future. The UI system will celebrate its 75th anniversary this fall. It has far exceeded the expectations when signed into law by President Roosevelt in 1935. It should flourish for another 75 years, but as the Great Recession comes to an end, now is the time to reward responsible behavior, assist states that need help with their obligations, and make structural changes so that states are better prepared for the next recession. Thank you, and I'll take any questions that you may have.